Welcome, everyone, to the Service Lounge. I am your host, Brandon Nixon, and with me today, we have Josh Taylor, who's really joining in and excited to hear your perspective here today. Excited to have you on the podcast. So welcome, Josh. And yeah, thank you for joining in on the Service Lounge.
You're most welcome. And I appreciate the time and the energy and the effort that goes into making a show and having me on. I know how much time, energy, and effort it takes to publish these.
Yeah, no, I know you run your podcast as well, so you get to see both sides of it. It's funny, when it comes to podcasts, I was like so against getting this thing started up. And because I just said, I don't have time. I'm doing all of these different things. But I will tell you the time is definitely worth it. And I hear it from peers and people in the industry that are like, hey, that I wouldn't suspect listen to it. That are like, hey, I listened to your episode recently. That one was good. There was some this. And I'm like, wow, I didn't think anybody listens to this. So, and I'm sure you get similar feedback. So that's great.
It's crazy to think how many episodes you produce and how many people you talk to. I think I just recorded guest number 102 or 103
that's amazing.
Or something
yeah,
like
you're
that.
far ahead of where I'm at. I limit myself, but that's
it's
awesome.
It's interesting, all these different perspectives that we get to have. So
yeah, exactly.
Things that we wouldn't have otherwise gotten to do.
For sure. Well, for everyone listening on, I know it's been a great start to the year. We're about halfway through the year, or just into halfway through the year. And I will tell you, this year has been, killer compared to last year. 2025 at the end of last year was just, I know it was down and low for everyone, including for us. And the start of this year was very promising. And then through to the middle of this year has been an absolute just killer. It's been amazing. So excited to jump on here and have great, guests like yourself on, because I think we're going to be able to really set people up for the second half of this year with success. So Josh, if you don't mind, for people who are listening in and maybe don't know who you are, can you kind of give an introduction of, who you are, your background, how'd you get into automotive, and what are you doing now?
Hey, so I'm Joshua Taylor. I'm host and creator of the Renters podcast. And like I mentioned earlier, we've got a little over 100 guests now, a little over 200 episodes total on the show, out in YouTube and Spotify. Been doing it for a while. The show itself came from a need, as it were. My grandfather died, and I felt like I needed to give back to the community like both of my grandfathers had. So I did some research. And after being in automotive for 25 years, I realized I wanted to give back to my community like they had, that both my grandfathers had. So doing the research, I found a article that showed mechanics were in the top 3 professions that committed suicide. And as someone who is a semicolon themselves, I needed to find a way to give back to them, help them from a mental health and specifically kind of a mental health and leadership kind of perspective, be a little bit different than what's out there right now. So it turned into a show and a business that's focused on helping technicians in any industry, not just automotive, but in any industry, to help them be happier, healthier, more productive. So that's what we produce, Renters Podcast, between panels with other technicians, one-on-ones with guests of all shapes and sizes from all industries, to really help coach technicians, really to show them what's out there, what you can do as a mechanic, what you can do if you don't want to be a mechanic anymore, but still want to use all of those skills that you've created over, 10, 20 years of being a mechanic, and really just kind of invest that, 20 years like I did. I started as a broom pusher at a CDGR store, evolved getting my license here in Canada. I was a service advisor. I was warranty admin and dispatcher at the flagship MB store here in Canada. I was a general manager for a while. I've worked for digital marketers and continue to work for digital marketers, but now specifically for fixed ops marketing, helping dealerships with their service marketing needs. So I've worked in almost every area of the dealership. I've technically indirectly sold cars because I got, I believe the last tally when I left the dealership was I had 36 bird dogs as a service advisor.
There you go. I
So
like it.
I've done a little bit of everything in the dealership and also in independence. I've worked in collision center and both as a technician and as a general manager. So I've done just about everything you can possibly do around automotive in terms of fixing things and service and so forth. So
That's awesome. Yeah, a background like that, you've seen the industry change a lot, I'm sure, as well. And I love what you're focusing on when it comes to the technicians, because I hate to say it, they're I had an analogy recently that like a doctor's office, the doctor is the heart of that office, right? And everybody else is supporting and really driving, and the respect is there for the doctor. And a lot of people don't realize that the technicians are really that for a dealership service department, but they're not treated the same way, right? So I love what you're putting into, trying to increase that success for technicians and technicians really, if we didn't have them, the service department wouldn't be a thing at all.
Mhm.
And service advisors are obviously very important, but when it comes to the end, that technician and the environment you drive for those technicians is really going to drive a lot of how well your store is going to perform. And we don't talk about it enough, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, really excited, and really that's the topics we want to drive in here today. Is really how can we improve for technicians their lives to ultimately improve the customer experience, right? And I've always said, take care of your people, and everything else will follow beyond that. And so, can you tell me a little bit more of what's your vision around that, and really what have you done to really help and improve on the technician side of things?
So the business from a slightly different perspective, before even the podcast was a twinkle in the eye,
Yeah.
was a wellness survey. So some
Okay.
folks out there will remember that, nearly 4 years ago, I had surveyed a whole host of dealerships. So I got roughly 30 stores to participate, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 technicians, um, to gather information between income, production, health and wellness, and life satisfaction. Kind of all rolled in one, to be able to correlate different metrics and so on and so forth. Because
Yeah.
for a long time, and you talk to any technician, you talk to any service manager, and the first gut reaction that they all give is pay, right? The
Yeah.
first gut reaction to any problem is pay. It's either flat rate is awful, it sucks, or the pay itself in terms of the amount sucks. So I wanted to get some real data, something that I could say that I can look at and I can drill down on. So I did that. And one of the interesting things is when you start to correlate things outside of pure pay, you start to see some interesting things. And the first and the foremost is you can have people who are exceptionally happy with their life and making average or less than average pay.
Yeah.
And you can have people who are making top 1% money and who are on borderline depression. I would be concerned for their livelihood, suicide
Yeah.
kind of level satisfaction. And then there's the whole in between. But typically when you expect, the swath of data, and depending on how you look at statistics and how you look at and aggregate all the data, you would typically expect, 10% at the top, 10% at the bottom, and then, 80% in the middle is the average. That really wasn't the case. It really impacted people. The level of training was huge, right?
Yeah.
And I've said this time and time again, as a dealership technician, you want to get your training as fast as humanly possible. And in terms of helping them understand just how important this is, that survey was the first step, because it got me the information to say level one training as an aggregated average meant they made 40 grand a year, but no more.
Hmm.
If you got your level two done, and this means complete level two, now I know every brand is a little bit different and they say little different things, whatever, but
Yeah.
think about it as basic, intermediate, and advanced. If you got your level two done, they're going to make 60 grand a year, but no more. But here's the rub. Level three, you get your level three done, pay starts at 80 grand and averages at 110. So this really impactful thing about training that is such a misnomer across
Yep.
all of technicians and service managers and everything. When you start to look at pay versus training, how impactful getting your training is. Now, the caveat then becomes to technicians saying, well, if I learn more, I earn less because they're going to give me harder stuff.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. If you're at a shop that simply gives you, we'll call it garbage for a second, the garbage diagnostics, and doesn't pay you properly for it, and then also doesn't take care of you afterwards after doing like 2 days of diagnosis on a car that nobody can fix. If they're not taking care of you afterwards, that's the shop you need to find. Need to find the one that's going to take care of you
Yeah.
after those
Exactly.
really hard things. The second piece, and I'll keep this short, is just building community. One of the interesting things that this podcast has really done for me personally is I now have a community of technicians, a large community of technicians that I can call on a regular basis to get answers for things, leadership-based things, not how do you fix a 1999 Acura Integra distributor cap, even though I know how to fix that already. But I don't need that. There's service manuals, there's YouTube, there's all of the things out there that can teach technicians how to fix those things. Anybody can look and find those kinds of bits of information. I'm talking about the stuff that there isn't a lot. How to communicate, how to lead teams of technicians, how to network within those leaders, the middle leaders, your shop foreman, how to
Yep.
find people like that and put them in a room. And I have a group chat of those. So I've got like 40 or so technicians. Most of them, if not all of them, have been on the show. Call them the sweaty leaders. And we talk about leadership. We talk about fatherhood. We talk about faith. We talk about communication. We talk about the things that nobody teaches us as men and or as technicians. Now,
Yep.
there are some women in there too, and every once in a while they pipe up and give their perspective, which I want more of, which is also why
Yeah.
I'm doing a female-focused series this summer. But those two really big things is training. You need to get your training. And two, you desperately need to get a group of people that can help lift you, not bring you down.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you bring up a good point when it comes to shop foremans, because oftentimes a shop foreman just becomes a foreman because, you know, someone at the dealership says, "Yeah, they're one of our top performers. Let's move them into a foreman role. Let's call them a leader." But let's not train them how to be a leader, right? Let's
Hmm.
not train them how to motivate a team or what they should specifically be working on that's going to make them productive throughout their day. And it's unique because even on this podcast, I this is probably the first time I've mentioned shop foreman, and it happens as an instinct with our industry to kind of just put that off to the wayside because there's other managers in the service department that are expected for performance, and oftentimes shop foremans kind of get pushed off to the side. Like, yeah, they understand that they have this small factor of a role, but the reality is they have huge responsibilities that drive the productivity within that shop, right? So, you know, I'd love to hear a little bit more, especially when it comes to shop foremans. How have you seen not only surrounding yourself around good people, but how have you seen dealers invest into training shop foremans? It sounds like it's a lot less. Like dealers are not doing that very often. So, what if a shop foreman's listening in? What's their first step to start improving in their own role there?
And find a network or group of people who are doing it. So one of the greatest pieces of advice that I've ever been given is if you want to do anything, find somebody who's already doing it and then listen to them.
Yeah,
Ask lots of questions and listen. The challenge is from that perspective, it's also finding someone who is winning and who's not in it for themselves, whether it's for fame or for celebrity or for money or for whatever it is. You got to find a group of people who are genuinely leading or genuinely doing the role that you want to do. And shop foreman aside, any role, find
yeah,
them the people doing it or doing it as well as you think that they are, so that you can learn from them. And that's really what the Sweaty Leaders has really come to be, and what it really was created for is for that networking opportunity. That's the first and foremost. The second is there is so much learning involved. I already said something about training. There are literally millions of books on leadership
yeah,
and self-development and self-accountability and resilience. Read, read a lot. And that's what all of us in this group, as well as the information that I've given and received, is you need to read. You need to read a lot about leadership, about empathy, about communication. And lo and behold, you also have to learn about selling. Because one of the interesting things about leadership is getting people to do the things you want them to do, but not by telling them what to do.
yeah,
You want to influence them into the decision. You want them to understand why they're doing it so that they can all row in the same direction for the business. You're
yep,
steering at the back. You can only do so much steering. When you've got 15 people rowing, if you got a little rudder, because you've got little to no influence, you're not going anywhere but straight.
yep,
If you need to turn, you're going into an iceberg, bad news bears. But if you've got a really big paddle out back because you have a lot of influence on the whole team and everybody's rowing the same direction, you can go a lot of places. That's why surrounding yourself with people who are positive, who are doing the role that you want to do, so you can learn from them, so that you can then influence your teams as a shop foreman. That's that's where I would start.
That's great. I agree with you that, in order for you to accomplish your goals as a whole for the business, you got to have everybody willing to steer in that right direction, right? And not by
Mhm.
telling them, but getting them to believe into the process, right? And that takes listening, that takes adapting and actually getting them involved in the decision making process so that they do believe in the vision and do believe in what they need to start executing. So
Mhm.
that I love that. So, question I have for you: big issue we have in our industry is everybody will scream at the mountaintops, technician shortage, technician shortage, technician shortage. And I see managers almost take that too literal to the point where they're afraid of their technicians, and they'll let the shop just go in whatever direction, whether it's a good direction or not, just because, well, I'm not going to light up my senior tech over here. I rely on him, but he's not doing what I'm asking him to do. But at the same time, I'm not going to say anything to him. And it becomes this like fear environment. And we see it time and time again. How do we get the service managers, service directors, and the technicians and the senior techs and the shop foremans more aligned so that it can be, hey, we're all rowing in the right direction. And it's not, I'm letting so and so do whatever they want because they've been here forever and no way I'm going to lose them because I can't replace them with someone right now, right? It's a hard dynamic for our industry to tackle, and if you don't have the right leadership in the service department, it can often fail right away because they just, like I said, they get scared, and leading by fear is never positive.
No. No, and there's a significant amount to unpack there,
Yeah.
Brandon. So let me see if I can kind of keep it short and sweet and keep it to the three things that came up there. So first and foremost, yes, we have a quasi shortage of technicians. I think there isn't actually a shortage of technicians to a certain degree. I think it's less than what everybody thinks there is, mostly because I know a handful of shops that have stacks and stacks and stacks of resumes and
Yeah.
never have an empty shop or even an empty bay for that matter. So there is a quandary there that needs to be discussed at length at a different time.
Yeah.
But specifically, I think it's not necessarily a technician shortage. I think you can talk about it in different ways, but at its root, I think it's at it. We're actually short of its trust. So I've used this analogy a couple of different times, but if parents of children don't trust dealerships and shops with their vehicle,
Yeah.
why would they ever trust dealerships and shops with their children?
To go work there. Exactly.
That. So if it starts there, it means not only do they not trust us to sell them a car or fix their car, they're not going to trust us to allow us to employ their children,
Yep.
let alone make it a career.
Yep.
And it's not until we fix that that we going to start moving in the right direction. My belief is, and my opinion is, we need to get fathers back into the shop. And that's back to foreman. Because the foreman is the father of the shop. They praise where necessary, they coach where necessary, they mentor where necessary, and they discipline where necessary. And they are given the authority and the autonomy to be able to do what is required to make the boat row in the right direction. 30 years ago, the shop foreman was the guy who was both loved and feared. You
Yep.
never wanted to get on the wrong side of them because they would lay down the law. But you wanted to impress them and you wanted to make them proud because it meant you were doing your job and doing your job well. The flip side of that is you now have someone who is literally watching you do the jobs every day,
Yep.
verifying that you are doing well, giving you props when you are doing well, holding you accountable when you don't do well. Without those people in the shop whose entire role is to ensure that the people of the shop and the service drive to a certain degree and potentially all of that degree as well, making sure everybody is taking care of people, taking care of people. I don't know of any example out in the world right now where a loss of strong fatherhood figures in places, whether it's work, sports, or home,
Yep.
isn't the biggest challenge we're facing right now. So when we get faith and family and fathers back into the shop, I think we start to really make some serious changes because now you have somebody to look up to. Now
Yeah,
technicians can,
absolutely.
young and old, experienced and green, can go, that person has my back.
Mhm.
They're
I
also
think
gonna they're also gonna hold me accountable, but they have my back.
I think you mentioned a great point, which ties to this technician shortage argument that we have with the industry. I think we're oftentimes looking about who we're bringing in a wrong light, right? Like you'd mentioned, there's resumes stacked up on majority of people's desks, but it's like, well, yeah, I don't know. I need this super experienced individual to come in and fill the specific niche role that I'm trying to with my technicians. And oftentimes, if you can set yourself up as the dealership to bring in the right individual who's willing to learn, and you're willing to spend the time to grow them, to turn them into a senior, A-level technician, right? I had a different individual on the podcast a few, I want to say about 6 or 7 episodes ago. And he's got a specific program where he brings in lower level technicians and marries them up with the senior technicians, like you said, having almost that father figure to look up to, right? They're responsible. In turn, long-term retention has dramatically increased at that store. And he's got a lot more individuals who are wanting to step up and be better because they're seeing their peers succeed and they want to succeed, right? They're seeing their mentor and what they're able to accomplish and they want to do that as well. So I think if we change the way that we're looking on our technician hiring and not just shunning away, individuals who may not have the experience, but really welcoming them in and investing more into growing them, you're going to see a lot better long-term results at every dealership that we get into.
Agreed. It's fundamentally about who and what and why we hire. If you give everybody a chance, it's overwhelming. If you don't give anybody the chance, you're going to underperform.
Yep.
If you do everything slowly, you're spending a lot of money to hire. If you fire slowly, you're contaminating your shop. So there's a balance in all of those things. But the reality is, if you get somebody in who is green, but has drive, has character, has
Yep.
charisma, has capability, and can communicate, we can teach them how to turn wrenches. The actual job itself is is mostly easy. It's the top 20% part of our job that is really, 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 really hard. It's communication between each other, communication to leaders, communication to parts, communication. That stuff is the really hard stuff.
Yep.
Learning the diagnostics, learning all the advanced systems. Yes, that's somewhat hard, but that's a lot of studying and time and energy and effort. It's not actually hard.
Yep.
It's just effort. The balance of this stuff, your day to day, once you get into the 5 to 8 years, which is why I've started to ask the technicians on the show, it's like, what does that 5 to 10 year career portion look like? What does it look like? And most of them agree with me. That's boring. The
Yeah.
5 to 10 year stuff is the boring stuff. They're not super advanced doctor of the house level diagnostic technician yet. They're the line technician that comes into work early, is ready to work, busts all day long as hard as they can, doing brakes and tires and tie rods and all of the things that make the dealerships the most amount of money and us the most amount of money. But it's boring, monotonous, easy work. It's not.
Hmm.
It's the beginning that's hard, and it's the end that starts to get hard. And the end starts to get hard because it's advanced level diagnostics. Our bodies are starting to, 45, getting to 50. It's really hard to move like we were when we were 25. So things
Yep.
get slightly harder, but it's in a different way. So if we are more tactical with who we hire in terms of character and capability, I think we have a better long-term output, especially if we're growing from within, instead of trying to magically hire this phantom type A super
Exactly.
diagnostic technician that happens to be within my brand as well. If they exist, they're going to be so outrageously expensive and unlikely to fit your culture because
Exactly.
they've spent so much time in other places. It's going to be really, really hard to fit. Really, really, really hard to fit. And that process is so expensive for GMs and dealer principals that they've got to be pulling their hairs out trying to figure out how to make this top tech work for them
Yep.
when you could spend the time, energy, and effort probably in less money or the same money and walk into local colleges, walk into local high schools and say, hey, this is the 5-year plan to work at our store as an aspiring technician, as Ed Roberts would suggest. This
Yep.
is what your next 5 years is going to look like. This is what you're going to make in the next 5 years because we have a plan, we have a pay plan, we have a training structure. You do that and you build your culture around caring for those people, especially young people. You're going to make the public trust you. You're going to make your customers trust you. You're going to make your
Yep.
technicians trust you. You're going to build a culture of leadership, direction, accountability. We start doing that from within as a whole, as an industry, there's no stopping us.
Well, I think it brings it full circle. You solve that initial problem you brought up, is if the overall impression of automotive is that we're not to be trusted and, that we don't provide good experiences, then why are people going to send their children to us to learn
Mhm.
the trade and to work into our stores? If you focus on your people and you promote that as well, like you had mentioned, Ed Roberts does a great job of that and contributes to the community, right? To the point where the community sees what he's putting in, they see what their dealership's doing and how they're treating their customers. And guess what? That door keeps going around. Those next individuals want to be part of that. I want to be in that profession. I want to be able to provide for my family. So, yeah, that's a career path that I can go into and be respected in the community, right? And that allows you to, with your background with marketing as well, when you start doing that, is that not such great marketing material for you? Like it's the easiest way to tell the community, hey, we're the dealership you want to start working with because look how we take care of our people and look how we take care of you, right? So I love that. You did kind of bring it all the way around, that it's every step of the way and not forgetting about the certain aspects of your dealer that really drive a lot of the output. If you just focus on the productivity and you don't focus on your people, you're never going to get the productivity, right? You
Agreed.
have to focus on the people all the way through. So that's
Mhm.
awesome. So, Josh, we've unpacked a lot. We've gone through it a lot. What would be, for a GM, a service director, parts manager, shop foreman, someone listening in today on the podcast, what would be your bit of advice that you'd end on, to kick off the second half of the year? What would be something that you'd give them that you think can help to lead them in the right direction?
Every service manager, general manager, fixed director needs to put effort into doing one-to-ones with the entire team as often as your schedule will allow. And the reason for that, even though it is tremendously time consuming, and
Yep.
believe me when I say I understand how much pain that will incur to your schedule, it is going to be the single most impactful thing to your day because you're going to learn something about someone who takes care of their family, themselves, and the
Yep.
community around you. If you instill the trust to them, you trust them to take care of your business, you have to show them that you trust them. And until you have some kind of one-to-one rapport with them, or at least the service managers of your business have a rapport with them, they're never going to take it to the next level for you as a business owner. I've seen it time and time again where technicians, we see it over and over. They left for more pay. Did they leave for more pay or did they leave for a leader who wasn't listening?
Yeah. It's for someone who didn't know them, right?
And I understand there is as many bad eggs in every profession out there. There's a lot of bad eggs out there, and they're really contaminating the whole pool. And it's really, really hard to drive a business forward when you have so much negativity, which is why I say at the end of my show every single time, negative pushes, positive pulls. We want to get rid of the negative, pull the positive in. So the fastest, and I know it's cliche. This is so cliche. It is one of the most cliche things you can say in any industry for any reason. But you don't rise to the level of your effort. You fall to the level of tolerance. When you tolerate the negative, even for a little bit, you contaminate the shop. And I'll use a and very quick productivity testament here. You can go look online, and I can't remember the survey. Sorry, the article that this was written for. You can go online, you can find it. But if you have a negative individual in your shop, they affect the 5 people around them to a
Yep.
tune of 20% negative productivity. Positive, on the other hand, so say the other 5 are positive. they affect 5% productively forward. So it takes 5 positive
Yeah.
people to make the delta go positive 5% for 1 negative person. So I implore you to not necessarily hire slow, but fire fast.
Yep.
And I know that's going to hurt a lot of technicians out there. It's going to hurt a lot of service advisors out there for me to say that. But I would rather the culture of your business, the culture of your shop to remain strong than hold on to someone who's going to bring it down with their attitude. I don't care how
Absolutely.
much they produce. So fire fast, be empathetic, do one-to-ones as often as humanly possible, build trust, and the community will take care of you if you just actually, the trust is the most thing. The community will take care of you if you get them to trust you.
That's powerful information. I have to throw in because you're talking about one-on-ones. Before we finish off, I have to throw in for many managers, like you mentioned, one-on-ones can be daunting because, like you said, it is so time consuming, especially when you have 50, 60 plus employees at your store. It's like, how do I do that? Right. First off, empower your leaders and who's leading who, right? And truly create leaders because, yeah, maybe you're the service director and you've got 80 people that you're managing. Doing 80 one-on-ones in a single month is impossible. You're not able to do that, right? But there's ways that you can set up your shop to make sure that everybody has their leader that they're connecting with, to the point where that individual is keeping that technician at your store. And
Mhm.
one-on-ones do not have to be the same for every single person. That's the biggest mistake I see someone who's like worried about diving into doing one-on-ones is they're like, all right, I'm going to create a structure. I'm going to do it the same every single time. So I have consistency and then I can be efficient with it and get them done. But you're taking a wrong mindset. You're taking the viewpoint of just doing a one-on-one to get it done because you think it's going to make things better than truly caring about, no, wait, I want to have this communication dialogue and relationship with my employee. So I want to do the one-on-one to spend some time with them, right? And it could be, hey, we get together and we go over performance metrics. And the next time it could be, hey, yeah, it's been a great week. How have things been going for you? How's the family? Right? Just being able to connect on that level, and maybe you're not getting into details of the business, will get that individual to walk out of your office and go, I like that guy. I want to keep working for that guy. I want to make sure that we're successful.
Do you want to
So
give your audience one of the tidbits that I gave some of my coaching clients a couple of years ago that
absolutely.
seemed to be
Absolutely.
effective? Okay, so anybody that's listening that does one-to-ones, whether you're on the receiving end or the giving end, it doesn't matter. One-to-ones. As a leader, one of the great ways to show any impact from those one-to-ones, forget about the pleasantries, forget about the family, forget about any of that for a second. Every time you do a one-to-one, especially the first time and then the second time are your most impactful moments or opportunities for most impact. I want you to ask a very specific question. I want you to ask, what is something that I can fix in the next 90 days that is going to improve your experience, productivity, or well-being at this business? And then shut up and listen.
Mhm.
And once they finish telling you whatever that happens to be, spend the next 30 days figuring out how to make that happen if it's possible.
Yep.
And then on your next one-to-one, you are going to show that you did something about that thing. Everything else, the family, the friends, the what you did, all those things, those are nice to haves. The need to haves is that they told you something in a private conversation, in
Action.
confidence. They were potentially vulnerable. So that's an opportunity for you to build trust. They told you something that they needed to be better. And then you fixed it, did it, gave it, whatever. So you've built rapport, you've built trust, they've given you an opportunity to build trust even more so because of the vulnerability. And then you did something. So you prove that you are trustable in actually affecting their day.
Yep.
You do that, and then you keep doing that. Say every 90 days, every 6 months, you ask them, what can I do to help your experience, your productivity, or your mental health in the next 90 days, and then do something about it. Do that on your next one-to-one across all of your one-to-ones, and then they don't have to be big. Like, they don't have to be big at all. It could be coming up with a rotation on who sweeps the shop so that there is a set list of who sweeps. It could be something stupid like that. But that planning and organization of that task now means that that person who probably feels like they need to do it every day because nobody else will, now you have a set schedule for it. Now you've distributed the work across the whole team. Hopefully your shop foreman then holds the people accountable who weren't necessarily pulling their weight on it. And now everybody is now doing something to help the team
Yep.
and the shop and the business.
Yeah. I think it's great information and a good takeaway. Action. Take action. If you're going to be a leader, you got to listen and then take action on what they give you. So, Josh, appreciate you jumping on here. Excited to have you here. And for those who are listening on, definitely listen on to Josh's podcast. He's got, like he said, he's got great individuals on there, and really is progressing the industry forward in a better direction than where we leave it. So I appreciate you taking the time here, Josh, and look forward to hopefully having on, jumping on your podcast and having you back on here in the future as well.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Brandon. Thank you for having me on the Service Lounge for Update Promise. I appreciate the time, the energy, the effort. I appreciate the audience for listening and watching, and hopefully subscribing to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Hope everyone has a great rest of their week, and we will see you next time on the Service Lounge.